Hi everyone. I'm going to give people just another minute or two to arrive and get started. I know we're here a minute or so early. So if anyone is out there, I don't see anyone, but we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you so much for coming. This is Project Managing Your Job Search. My name is Laura Reddick, and I am currently the Senior Program Manager with CIIS Public Programs and Performances. And this is part of the summer webinar series with the CIIS Center for Career, Community, and Engagement. So I'm going to go ahead and share my Prezi now. We'll have some opportunities for questions probably in the middle and towards the end. I'll try to stop and take some questions. If you'd like to ask questions, you can go over to the left-hand side and click on Q&A, and that's how you can ask your questions. So I hope you can all see my screen. So in terms of project managing your job search, the goal is really to get a job. So particularly a job being employed with someone rather than being an entrepreneur. So here I'm kind of using the mountain as the metaphor here. So I have quite a few steps, and just to start out, I really think the most important thing in working towards any kind of job search is to set goals and to set reasonable, manageable goals for yourself. So for example, in my last job search, in which I got the job that I have now, I set the goal of 2 applications per day. Something like 2 applications per day makes it much more manageable. You can kind of get them done, spend an hour, maybe 2 hours. Towards the beginning, it might be a little bit more. Get the 2 applications out, feel like you're done for the day, move on to the next one. And if you do that every day or even every weekday, you've got 10 applications done in a week. Another example of a reasonable and manageable goal would be to be employed by a certain date. And again, this needs to be manageable. So you wouldn't want to say you want to be employed in a month, but you might want to say that you'd like to be employed in 6 months. And if you're just finishing a program, for example, and it's January, to have an offer or 2 on the table by the time you graduate wouldn't be an unreasonable goal. The other thing with goals I think is very important is to review your goals often and adjust them. So it's always good to look once a month or anytime you're feeling down, and these processes can take a lot of energy, and adjust them. Like, is 2 applications a day really getting you where you want to go? Maybe it should be 3 applications a day if you're not seeing the response you want. The next tip is to really know yourself, and I think this is just as important as setting goals. So I am really a big fan of this particular piece. So I have taken and enjoy many personality tests. My favorite in terms of business and career is StrengthsFinder. So this is a test that was created by the Gallup Center, and there's quite a few books on this. It actually started as a management survey and has turned into a personal development and career development tool. So you can find it online. It does cost a little bit of money, but it's really, really worth it. The point is that you want to focus on your strengths rather than your weaknesses. So it'll give you your top 5 strengths and a little bit about them. I think we've got 38 or 40 strengths. The cheapest way to actually do this is to get the StrengthsFinder 2.0 book, which has a brief description of how they came up with this and a description of all the different strengths and the code on Amazon or something. I think it's $7 or $8. Another one that I really enjoy is the Princeton Review Career Quiz. That one's a free online quiz. And it's interesting because they will give you career advice as to which careers you might want to go into. But what I think is important is similar to the StrengthsFinder is what are the skills and things that you enjoy that you could plug into many, many different careers. Another one that's very popular is the Myers-Briggs personality test. That's the 16 different types. 16personalities.com is one that I found that was free. And then the Enneagram is another one. These are just a couple. There are lots and lots of personality tests that you can take. And so then the other thing about knowing yourself is building your skills and experience. So I'm finding that this slide isn't working, so let me just go back, make sure that we're all seeing the same slide. Okay, so we should have the know yourself slide, and I can definitely share this after the fact too. So knowing your skills and experience, you want to build an accurate yet flattering resume. You really want to kind of know what it is that really makes your resume exciting, and you might need to get some help with this. I think the Career Center is a great place to go to say, I've done these things, what really should I highlight in my resume? How should I best use words and formatting to display my skills? And really understanding what you want in a job. So I really enjoy doing things like vision boards or mind mapping, just something to get your job needs out on paper, out of your mind. And these things include qualities of the job, so everything from the culture of the company to your workspace. Some people like an open work environment. Some people prefer an office or a cubicle. The industry, kind of how your boss treats you is a big one for me. So all of these different things that you'd like to see, that you'd like in a job, and also your basic needs, things like how far away is it from your home, what's your minimum salary requirements to have the lifestyle that you'd like to have. So those kinds of things are really important to understand when you're looking for the job. One tool that I found that I really enjoy is the Net Impact Career Significance Navigator, also a free tool that you can download, and they have some instructions on how to use it on their website. And that'll kind of help you understand where in the spectrum from for-profit, nonprofit, government jobs you might want to be in, and also kind of how your skills fit in with different types of jobs. And in my experience, so I guess I didn't mention that this presentation is coming out of both my experience as a hiring manager and my recent experience getting a job, is to apply to everything that matches your minimum requirements. So in my most recent job search in 2013, I was literally applying to everything from assistant, executive assistant, to director level positions because those matched my minimum requirements. I really wanted to work in a nonprofit, and I really wanted to work in an organization that valued the same things that I did, which I think a lot of us at CIIS are in that same position. And then know what's non-negotiable and what you can be flexible on. Maybe you can be more flexible on going a little bit further to the work site if you're making enough money, or maybe it's really important to you to work with a team of really good people and you might be okay making a little less money. So that's something that's really important too, just in terms of knowing yourself. So finding openings. This is one that I actually really enjoy. I think a lot of people don't. So I'm hoping that I can give you some parameters for finding openings. The big one you always want to use are these big online job boards. The thing is you don't want to just use those. So I've added a few here, but there are lots of them. Idealist is one that is particularly nonprofit jobs. Indeed is one of the bigger general job search sites. They actually pull from company websites, so they have a very, very broad range of openings. DICE is tech jobs, but it's kind of a wider range. It's not quite an industry-specific one, so but there are ones like that where you can find things that are more specific to what you're looking for. And then in the Bay Area in particular, Craigslist is really popular, but where I used to live, Craigslist wasn't used at all. So it's really based on what markets you're interested in too, figuring out what those employers are using. My biggest tip is to search for really obscure boards because there might be, oh, I swear the slide is stuck again. Let me just do it this way. Hopefully you can see it. Searching for obscure boards. So for me, I really appreciate B corporations, which are socially responsible corporations. It's a certification that companies can get, and they have their own job board. So sometimes there are jobs that are listed on the B Corp board that might not be listed elsewhere. Net Impact is a nonprofit that also has their own board, and then industry-specific boards. So you can really search for these obscure boards and find jobs that might not be listed otherwise. Another one is searching for organizations or companies that you'd like to work for and just looking for openings on their websites, going to their hiring page and seeing what they have. And then I think one big thing at CIIS in particular, but I'd recommend this for anybody, is synchronicity, just looking for job opportunities all the time. So I found my most recent job in a newsletter that was posting the opportunity. Paper posting, so when you're walking through and you see a corkboard or something, looking on that for any job postings, asking your friends, just kind of always being on the lookout for that perfect opportunity. And then my key in terms of the project management piece is saving all your sources to check later, especially if they're online. Either have them in a favorites folder or make sure you have them easily accessible so you can kind of just scroll through them all after you've done all that research, which can take a little while. So let's see. Let's move forward, and then we'll go back to full screen. The next piece here is really organizing your information. So you want to keep everything in one place as much as possible. Maybe you want to have one online folder and one folder on your desktop, or one Google place to keep it. Keep track of all the jobs that you've applied to with the dates and some additional information. In just a second, I'll show you my copy of this. You can do that in Excel, you can do it in Google Doc. There's also some project management software like Asana or Basecamp, which are online project management software packages. Those are really meant to be used for teams, but I think they could be really helpful for an individual wanting to just organize a lot of information, keep different files and documents. My big tip is always save the job description. So you want to save your resume and cover letter, but sometimes the job description might not be available a month down the line when you get an interview. So I always would just copy and paste into a Word document the job description so that I had it to refer back to once I got that phone interview or that in-person interview. And Word, Google Docs, or some sort of screen capture like that, it is good for that. So I'm just going to switch over here and go to my Excel document just so you can see what it looks like. Let's see. So I hope you could all see my Excel document here. This is the this is my record for the last time that I applied to jobs. So I just very simply had the organization, the job title I was applying to, the date that I applied, and whether or not I heard back. So you'll see here, quite often I got a no. And then when I says time, it had been 2 or 3 months and I hadn't heard back. So you can see that I applied to quite a few jobs before I got my current job, and then applied to quite a few afterwards. So I'm happy to share that as well if anybody's interested. So going back to the presentation then. Oh, the other thing actually that I wanted to show before we head back to the presentation is my file system for filing, for keeping track of all of my jobs. I hope you can see this. So here it's just kind of in my documents, resumes, and then I have my job search. I've actually got records from quite a few of the job searches that I've done in the past, but this is the most recent one. And you can see that I just had a file for each institution, for each organization that I was applying to. And then here's my Excel document right there with everything else. And just to show you, this is the job that I was offered. I have my resume, my cover letter, my application, and the job description. And then I also interviewed, so I have interview questions, and all in the same place. And all of these files have similar information in it, just so that I could keep up with it, so that I didn't have to remember what any one job was after I'd applied. And then I could just focus on the ones that that were interested in me. So let me go back to the presentation again. So the next piece here is networking and informational interviews. And I include this just because I think when you're job searching, as kind of a project, you want to explore absolutely all the possible avenues that you could. However, I found, at least in my experience, networking events have a tendency to be a lot of other people looking for jobs. I still think they're important to do, because you might not necessarily meet someone that for this job, but you might meet somebody who also gets a job and is a good contact for you, either in that job or for another job. So things like networking events, there's lots and lots of them in the Bay Area. Green Drinks and Women's Environmental Network were a few that I looked at, but I know that there's lots for any industry that you're interested in. LinkedIn and social media. So one of the things that I didn't note on the Excel document was that I had a column for check LinkedIn. So I would look at each company and see if I had any friends there and ask them to give a good word to the hiring manager or connect me with the person there if they could. Friends, so when you're job searching, you kind of want to gently let everybody know that you're job searching. Maybe not the first thing that you say, but somebody says, "Hey, how are you?" Tell them a little bit about your life, and I'm looking for a full-time job, or I'm looking for a part-time job, or whatever your parameters are. They might know somebody or give you a key that gets you the position that you end up with. And then informational interviews are another one that I think is really helpful. I'm sure the Career Center can give you more details on how to do this, but I actually had a goal of doing 3 informational interviews during my last job search, and I only ended up getting to 2, so that's a good example of kind of how goals might shift and change. But I was introduced to people in different organizations through friends, so that's a great way to do it. But the point of informational interviews is really to meet with somebody who you might want to, who's in a position that you might want to be in at some point. And really just to ask them, so you're interviewing them, just ask them how they got there, what they do day to day, what they like and dislike, really to get a sense for whether or not you'd like to have that job, and also to have that person as a contact. So definitely add them on LinkedIn once you've finished their interview. And again, set goals. How many events or interviews you'd like to have. So for me, I said 3 informational interviews during my job searching time. Maybe 1 networking event every 2 weeks might be a manageable goal for you. Just depends, or reach out to 1 friend for a connection each week. So the next one is a cover letter and resume. And I'm going to go over this kind of quickly, just a few tips, again, because I feel like the Career Center can give you much more in-depth understanding of what a good cover letter and resume looks like and how to put them together and create one that's really stellar in your particular situation. So in my experience, I created a different cover letter for each job using language or keywords from the job description. This, I think, is really, really critical. The cover letter really needs to be specific to the job. It really needs to highlight the people and the organization, especially if you're going for nonprofits or mission-based organizations. They really want to see why you're interested in their mission. And then even for for-profit jobs, they really want to know that you understand their industry and their workplace. So I created a different cover letter for each job. And once you kind of get a few, or if you're searching for mostly the same title, you can definitely use bits and pieces, phrases, sentences, even paragraphs, if the job descriptions are very similar, to lessen the load there a little bit. But again, with cover letters, don't be afraid to reach out for help, especially your first couple. Reach out to a friend, just ask it over, see what they like, don't like. Make sure to send them the job description too, so they know what they're looking for. And then create a potentially different resume for each job. So what I would do is use a master resume where I had absolutely everything that's 3 pages long or something, and cut and reorganize for each job, depending on what that job needed or required. Or you could create multiple resume templates, like a 1-page template, a 2-page template, a nonprofit versus a for-profit template. But then you still want to tweak things for most of the jobs. So I had a section that had my top skills up at the top, and for each job I would change that just a little bit to match the job description. And I know that sounds like a lot of work, but it's really not if you're only doing, say, for example, 2 applications per day. So you can really focus on those, that resume and that cover letter, and it gets easier. The first couple are going to be challenging, but it really does get easier, and it's really worth it to get the job that you really, really want. And you have 1 shot to give a first impression on paper. Definitely grammar, definitely formatting, making sure that all your details are there. If you make a mistake, it kind of stinks, but right off that job. I did have a job that I was really well qualified for and really interested in. I think I left the wrong organization name on the cover letter, and I never heard back from them. So organizations will write you off for things like that. So it's really worth it to do a draft, get it as good as you can, take a break, get away from it for a few minutes, grab some tea or something, and then come back and give it another once over. Or if it's a job that you're really, really interested in, getting somebody to review it for you. And I also really feel like getting past the resume phase takes just as much luck as preparation. But you can't control the luck. I really think that it's too bad, but a lot of, in my experience anyway, a lot of the hiring is, is the person having a good day or a bad day when they happen to look at your resume? Did they just sit down with a cup of coffee and they're, ready to look through these, or is it the 20th one and they're only giving your resume 30 seconds? But you can change your preparation. So being super prepared, having your cover letter and resume as spot on as possible always, always helps. So getting to the interview phase, one thing that really helped me in terms of interviews is realizing that the interview is as much for you as it is for them. So this is where having everything organized all in one place really helps, because you can easily go find the job description. You can easily see what you said in your cover letter and what you said in your resume. You might not remember if you've got quite a few. So you can really be prepared and go research the company. But then you're really trying to interview them to make sure you want to work with them too. And if you know yourself and you know what you're looking for, you will also be able to determine if you want to work for them and if you want to work for this person who's interviewing you. If it's a phone interview, my suggestion is to dress up anyway, or at least get out of PJs, just so you sound, as kind of bright and chipper as possible. For a Skype interview, always test your system and test your background ahead of time. There's a lot of little things that are kind of unconscious that really register about an interview, and I mean, really almost take it as like you're going on a date. It's if your shoes are a little scuffed up, would you wear those to a date? If you wouldn't, then don't wear them to the interview. For an in-person interview, get there between 10 to 5 minutes early. More than 10 minutes is actually really disruptive for the people who are interviewing you, and you definitely don't ever want to be there late. So 5 minutes is really that sweet spot, and it's definitely worth it to get there 20 minutes early and then find somewhere to hang out or get a cup of coffee before you walk into the building, and definitely know where you're going. Think about the details, like I said, kind of like a date. What you're wearing, your dress, making sure that you have copies of your application, your resume, your cover letter, so that they didn't get a chance to print it out, you have it right there ready for them. That's always really impressive. My big thing, both as an applicant as a hiring and as a hiring instructor, is always ask questions at every stage as much as possible. And sometimes you can even kind of just, ask questions that not necessarily make them up, but if you're interviewing, I had one interview where I had 7 different interviews and I was interviewing with a lot of different people, and so I ended up just asking, how does your position interact with the position that I'm interviewing for? One of my favorite questions that you're welcome to take is, how will I be managed, particularly of the person who is going to be managing you? I like that one because it throws them off a little bit. It's not a question that too many people ask, and I think it's good. I mean, for me, it's very important to know how I'm going to be managed, but it's also kind of fun to have them on their toes a little bit too, and I think that can also help with the nerves of feeling like you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So just to come to the final slide here, the biggest thing with this is really to persist and endure. Depending on the job market, the timing, and where you're looking, it could take many applications to get an offer. Unless you're kind of an engineer and you're looking, coming from Google or something, or Facebook, and you're in super high demand, it can take a while. It took me almost 70 applications to get 2 offers most recently, but it was really worth it because I love the job that I have. And in this process, it's really important to find mentors and cheerleaders to keep you going. If you can have friends or someone who is in business, or is in the industry that you're interested in, that you're friends with, to kind of meet with you occasionally, see how it's going, someone to check in with you, that's always helpful. And then when you do get the offer, celebrate and negotiate. So don't feel like you have to say yes to anything in the offer. Make sure you get all of the details, and feel free to say, I need a few days to think it over. When do you need a response by? I especially recommend this for women. Women tend not to negotiate their offers and thus tend to be paid less than men. That's part of that complex system where women are paid less than men. So, unless you get an amazing offer that you weren't expecting, it's always worth it to say, great, thank you so much for the offer, and can you give me some time to get back to you? I also just wanted to mention a few other resources for job searching. I know I've given a lot here, and a lot of different tips and tricks in terms of the project management piece. Really, my point and goal is to get you to think about having a system for your job search, rather than kind of just going at it without having a system and a way to record what you've done. However, the job search world is really changing. There's some passive job search sites that are coming online now. One big one is called poachable.com. So it's really meant for people who are already in a job, but I think anybody could use it, where you'd be willing to leave for the right offer. And so you're not actually job searching in that, but you're looking. And I think if you are in a job search, it's a great tool. Again, use every possible tool when you're job searching. You never know where that great job could come through. And savvy.jobs is another similar one, more geared towards women. There are lots more ideas out there. One website that I have really, really liked is called 50waystogetajob.com. I don't like, there's one or two ways that I don't like, but 48 of them are really solid ideas. And then if you kind of want a different view on the job search project, so I think a lot of people think of end all be all dream job, I'm going to be there forever. It's really not quite. I think it's definitely still possible, but I think the job market is changing quite a bit. And the Quarter Life Breakthrough by Smiley Kowalski really shows how to think about what is good for me right now. Like, what is my dream job right now? And maybe that'll change in 6 months or a year or 5 years. But what is my dream job right now? And I really appreciate that book. And it's definitely targeted towards millennials, but I think anyone could get some great tips out of that book in terms of jobs, careers, purpose, vocation, kind of thing. So let me turn this off and check and see if anyone has questions. So are there any questions out there? And again, you just want to click on Q&A here on the corner, here on the left side, and then you can ask your question. Well, if there are no questions, I'm happy to go ahead and stop there. And you're always welcome to get in contact with me if you have any questions or would like the presentation. My email is lreddick, R-E-D-D-I-C-K, @ciis.edu. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to go ahead and stop.